back to the Get It podcast, where we get it every day. And today we are here with my lovely co-host. People, introduce yourself.
Hello, it's Ryan.
Chad Hankins.
And
hi everyone, my name is Bianca.
So today we're talking about guns. In Dayton, Ohio and El Paso, Texas, respectively, there was 2 mass shootings that occurred, and on behalf of Get, we'd like to send our condolences to all those affected by the tragedy. However, there's still a lot to talk about. When something like that happens, we still have the power to make some kind of changes in some kind of ways, and that's what this podcast is all about. Why don't we talk about some of the things that we think this nation's got to do when it comes to guns? And we'll start with Chad.
Sounds like a great place to start. So I definitely don't want to get caught up in any sort of a thoughts and prayers narrative. That clearly isn't working. But so one of the things that we all can agree on, almost all, 92% of Americans want to do federal background checks on guns. We can't get 92% of Americans to agree on the shape of the fucking planet. And we've got 92% of Americans who agree that we need to have federal background checks. So why isn't that getting passed?
Wait, are you talking about like through a retailer or person to person?
Both, person to person and retailers. It's not required in either
universal.
case. There is no, because we do background checks, but they're only statewide. Mm-hmm. So me moving here from a different state,
right.
I've bought a lot of guns in Texas. I am a gun owner. Mm-hmm. And as a gun owner who's bought a lot of guns in Texas, every time they sold me a gun, they don't know what I did in Colorado. Mm-hmm. I didn't do anything, that would keep me from owning a gun in Colorado, just for the record, but they don't even bother to look.
Well, and even with that, and correct me if I'm wrong, within the state of Texas, if it's a private gun sale, then you don't have to do a background check at all.
That's not just the state of Texas. That's that's federal law, because now you're talking about the gun show loophole.
Right. So that's just like crazy to me. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, great. Like you have to do background checks with like big companies and things like that. But then when it comes to, so it's just that easy. Someone has a gun, they want to sell it to someone else. They don't have to get a background check. I mean, right. I don't see how that where's the consistency here? I mean,
I personally want to see more, so that's a great idea, of course, background checks. Let's expand that. But most of these mass shootings that you've seen are carried out by people who had the guns when they weren't supposed to. So the guns are in the wrong people's hands.
You're saying most of these people, that's not true. Most of them buy the guns legally. Just like earlier when we were talking about Columbine. Those kids they bought those guns.
Wait, what? How did high schoolers buy guns?
Right.
How did high schoolers buy guns? They went to a fucking store and they bought the guns, Roy. They were 18. They were seniors in high school.
Okay,
right.
Well, okay,
so
and they went in and they bought the guns and they bought them legally, and and it's when you've got 92% of people agreeing on one single policy.
Right.
I don't.
No.
My point.
I think that's probably like some bullshit, though. Honestly, because you can say
I've got a Gallup
no,
poll,
not that.
Gallup poll.
That part,
right.
okay, I understand. But if you call me and you say, "Hey, are you in favor of federal background checks for guns?" Okay. But I think when you get into the nitty-gritty of things, like when you're talking about person-to-person transactions, that's when you're going to start to lose people.
Right.
I mean, I should be able to sell my cousin a gun without having to go through a federally mandated background check.
Why?
Why? Yeah.
Why should you be able? Why?
No.
Well,
why should you be able to do that?
What's the problem with that?
Because it's a weapon.
Private sale.
Why shouldn't you have to do that? Like what? If a retailer has to do that, why shouldn't someone else selling a gun have to do that?
It's a person-to-person. It's different. I'm not making money off of that every day.
Both of them is a gun sale. They're both gun sales. So
No. One of them is person-to-person. That's a different thing, especially like in a rural area. Where are you going to go? You're going to go to some big fucking background check place?
Well, what you may not realize, Roy, is we have the internet, we have smartphones, we can do that shit online.
Oh, man. First of all, the internet isn't for everybody. People know this. That's not everybody's deal.
We're still on dial-up.
That's not true. I recently got broadband.
Yeah, one step ahead.
No, but I really think that if you're trying to put more barriers to a person being able to sell their own property, no matter what it is, then you're probably doing something wrong.
But what we're seeing, Roy, is that it's a problem. We have a problem in our country that we need to address. That's the thing.
Okay.
And so we can't just say, hey, whatever. You know what I mean? It's a problem that we have to combat. It's an issue. It's affecting children. It's affecting innocent lives. It's affecting so many people that should not be affected by this, right? And so I get it, like the people in the rural area, you want to sell a gun to your cousin, but you're usually not the problem. That's not the problem.
But that's the whole point, is if the people who are law-abiding citizens aren't the problem, then why are they the ones getting punished?
Saying as a nation, every time we have this conversation, it becomes this parade of whataboutism.
Right.
Well, what about the fact that 92% of people agree we should have federal background checks and we still don't? We can start there. We have to start somewhere because this apathy, and I'm saying this as a guy who, if you see me, there is a gun very close. Like, I am an avid gun owner, and I'm telling you, we've got a fucking problem. A huge problem, and we have to address it. And this equivocating and this bullshit and this, well, what about this? What about that? What about the fact that, like, we have something that we have a starting point?
Right.
I don't look. It's just if you move the line even an inch when it comes to these civil liberties, you don't know when you'll ever be able to get them back.
Okay, so then what does that mean? That because we're so scared about the whatabouts, like Chad was saying, that we're not supposed to, that we just don't do anything, that we just sit on our ass and, well, if this could happen, so instead of taking action, and let's just watch as hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people are dying.
As we've been doing for the last how many years?
Well, but you know what? If you want to talk about something that actually is trying to do something, those red flag laws sound like pretty good ideas to me.
That sounds like they're taking away liberties, Roy.
Yes,
that sounds like a slippery slope.
No. You can take away civil liberties when somebody is going to be violent. That's the only time that you should be taking away.
Tell us more about these red flag laws.
Yeah.
Tell us more.
Yeah, start there.
If somebody seems as though they're unstable, that things are going to go bad, and they have a gun, the court can order that gun be removed for a period of time.
So using what metric, though? Because I'm sitting here having a contentious argument with you.
Yeah.
So am I going to get my gun taken away because you and I are disagreeing?
Right.
And I maybe
You know what? That is the only part of it that I can't figure out yet. If there is a real litmus test that you could figure out somebody's mental clarity, and you could figure out if they are really a danger to society by actually owning a gun, that a red flag law to me seems like some common sense thing to do. But who is the arbiter of that? I don't know.
Exactly.
Well,
and we got to start somewhere. I think we have to start a little before there. My personal opinion.
So where's before there?
So my thing is, I get it. I'm not saying the background checks are not a good idea. I'm saying they're not enough. I don't believe that these high capacity magazines should be lawful in the first place. I'm sorry, I don't get it, and I don't care if you want to do it for a sport. The thing is, it's affecting so many people, and it's gotten into so many of the wrong hands that it's the same. Think about this, right? In your family with your brothers and sisters, one person fucks up, guess what? All you guys get your privilege taken away. That's how it is. Until we can learn and be disciplined enough to have these on hand and not do the damage that we're doing, we don't need them. I don't give a fuck. We don't need them.
That shit was scary, man.
Yeah.
To see those high because it was in 1 minute.
Right.
He killed all those people.
32 seconds.
That's what I don't
32
understand.
seconds.
It's like, what's the point? But it's funny because you mentioned people, they support it because they're like, well, I had a friend who told me, well, have you ever shot one before? And I'm like, no, what is the point of that statement? And she's like, they're so much fun. And I'm like, okay,
well,
so but you having fun takes priority over people's lives. I mean, to me, my personal opinion is if a gun can kill that many people that quickly, what is it doing in the hands of just everyday people, civilians? I don't understand what the point is. I get guns for protection. I get handguns. I get those. Though personally, I would never own one because that's just, I'm not a gun. I'm the opposite of Chad. I don't do guns. To me, they terrify me. Honestly, they terrify me. But I get why other people would want them. I totally do. I just don't understand what the point of a gun that can, of that magnitude, that can kill that many people that quickly. Why is that something that people can get so easily?
Exactly. Well, and I can literally tell you the point. There are only 2 points to that entire gun. The first one you already addressed. It's fun. The second one is to kill a shitload of people.
Exactly.
It doesn't have any other function.
Exactly.
Like when people say, "Oh, well, I need my AR for home defense." That's the dumbest home defense gun. Those rounds are going to go straight through the wall. You're going to blow up the neighbor's cat. You can't move around corners with it. It's not a home defense gun.
It's a weapon of war.
Yeah, if people would just say flat out, like, it's really fun and I'm responsible, okay, well then maybe we can start looking at something.
Maybe we can have a better conversation around this.
Yeah, maybe we can look at something with like special licensing or something. But all this bullshit, these arguments about like, it's kind of like the other argument of, well, if the government becomes
I was going to say the next thing.
Oh my God, I can't.
Well, I'm sorry, but your AR-15 ain't going to do shit against the tyrannical government.
Right.
We've got Ruby Ridge, we've got Waco, we've seen this movie before, and it never ends with the guy who had the AR-15 or the guy who had the AK, and he took down the It's this weird fucking Rambo fantasy that these people who are unstable have.
Wait, so what was it when 13 colonies decided to rise up against an empire? Was that also just a Rambo dream?
And
Oh no! I'm
can
glad,
we talk about when that happened?
I'm glad
right?
you asked. There was an equity in guns at that point.
Right.
So you had the colonies who were fighting the British.
You're talking about fucking muskets versus cannons?
I'm talking about
There's
cannons
equity?
versus cannons, Roy. You don't think they had cannons?
No, I don't
You
think
don't
that.
think
I
that
don't think that
ca-
the colonies and the fucking rebels had as much weaponry as
They had the same kind of
British
weaponry.
Empire.
They all had muskets and they all had cannons.
So
all
either-
right, Roy.
They had more money. They had more resources. they
Either
could make
way,
more.
either way, beyond that, we can look at an example
Right, okay.
as to things
We're
that
getting
have
caught.
happened, right?
You're right.
So the news, yeah, I'm like, okay,
Fine, we'll
let's
stop
come back
fighting
to
for a second.
2019. So we had, I think March of this year. Was it March of this year? We had the New Zealand Christchurch shooting. Not we, but it happened, right? And in New Zealand, that was kind of the first of its kind. That was very much an outlier for them. Immediately, what they did, 24 hours later, Parliament took action, right? They imposed this buyback program. They outlawed a lot of those assault rifles, which we can get into that later as well. But my whole thing is, it's not so much even about what they did, it's about immediate action. Because a lot of times when you allow these instances to go unnoticed and you don't do anything about it, you don't react to them, you empower other people that have similar sentiment, that have similar ideas, and that's what we're seeing now, right? So if we were to say, hey, this is a problem, we're imposing this new law, this new course of action because of this, we would not empower as many of these mass shooters that we do.
I agree, and I think one, I just want to say really quickly, their leader, their prime minister. I mean, gosh, what it must feel like to have that type of leader.
Oh my God!
I don't know, but personal opinions here. But based on what you're going back onto what you were saying right now, I think it also that's kind of the game plan of the NRA and certain politicians, right? They're like, let's stop it. Let's halt this discussion a little bit. Let's make it take forever. Then people forget about it, and then it's not going to be as much of a priority. So it's done on purpose. I mean, their inaction is an action.
Well,
of its own.
it's a campaign of silence that's based on general decorum.
Right.
So what they do is they say, well, now's not the time to talk about it.
Right.
Now's not the time. And then we get where we're like, okay, has there been enough time yet? Shit, there was another one. Another mass shooting.
Right.
Now's not the time.
Right.
Yep.
There's never a time because
Right.
it happens constantly.
Right.
So they get to keep leaning on that and people keep going back to don't politicize it. Don't politicize it.
Right. It's politics.
Man, we got to talk
first
about
of all.
this at some point. You know?
Yeah.
Right.
I want to see action. I say we live in a country where there's more immediate action to a black man taking a knee on the football field than there is to a white man that drives 9 hours to a Walmart and shoots over 20. You know what I mean?
The outrage that they have because of that.
Right.
And then the silence
That is
when people die at the hands of guns.
Exactly. It's quiet. And what I'm saying, you see how fast they took action behind something like that? And I get it. You know what I mean? Everyone talks about the Second Amendment and the infringement upon that right. But I do believe that 300 some odd years ago that was put into place, it's time to revisit it. I'm sorry.
I'm honestly, I don't know if you're apologizing to me or.
I know. That's it too.
He said,
Did y'all have a private conversation?
I'm sorry, Chad.
You were looking
I'm taking your guns away.
Yeah, I just want to clear the air real quick. I'm probably one of the more liberal people at the table.
Hell yeah.
I'm not. I'm not running
good.
around. Throwing my belt buckle in the air and shooting it and yee-hawing or
Yeah.
kind of shit. So I don't need a personal apology about revisiting the Second Amendment. It's all right. I agree. I think we do need to look at what that means in 2019.
Right.
I will say, obviously, a full-scale gun ban, I say obviously, and I think it is the most because no one's calling for, get rid of all the guns. I know that's the
Right.
narrative that you hear a lot on like.
Hey, man.
Of course.
I was really like, oh, these liberals want to take all your guns away. No, they don't.
Exactly.
They don't. I know.
Hey,
I
man,
know.
some of them do.
Bro, I know. I've met like 3 people. They're not even. They wouldn't even show up. Bro, they wouldn't even show up as a blip on a fucking survey. Like they're not.
They're not on the radar.
That group is not. They are inconsequential.
And they know they couldn't even if they wanted to.
Yeah,
They
like
couldn't take away all your guns.
It's a wonderful thought, and
It's
it's,
a
like
scare
kumbaya,
tactic.
But it's the reality is like we're not gonna like. I would be opposed to that, and then you've got everybody on the right pretty much should be opposed to that. Like it's not a thing.
Yeah.
It's just not a thing.
Agreed.
It's just a bullshit narrative to keep us from having a real conversation about an
it.
actual problem.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so, just for the record, you don't have to apologize to me about the Second Amendment. That's the main.
To clear the air.
That's the main point.
It was a general apology to all of you.
He literally was making
Just-
eye contact with me when he said
literally.
it.
It was.
That's
It's
true.
great.
Chad was a comfortable face at that time. It just felt good to be like, I'm sorry.
I just felt a little sprinkle of salt right on the top of
That
my
was
head.
an
when he said
agreement.
that shit.
Yeah, I do have a lot of salt to throw. I'm just getting started too. I just opened up the can. My problem with this is that I feel like the burden keeps on being moved. So they refuse to address it, but instead are saying, so when it happens, this is how you should deal with it. There's even been talks about arming teachers, right? I'm sorry. I did not, again, I'm sorry, but I did not sign up for that.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, Chad. I'm sorry, but as a teacher, you did not sign up for that. You know what I
Oh
mean?
my
And that
gosh.
should not be your burden to carry.
Okay, do not give me a gun because I will accidentally
Exactly.
shoot my foot
Yeah.
or something worse. Honestly, I don't trust myself with
Yeah.
a gun. I don't want a gun.
Not only
Like-
that, yeah.
Why? But it's not in my. You're right. It's not in
Yeah.
my job description. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, because of where we're at today, and because of the realities of American society, and just in general, guns in our country, that has become a part of our job description.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's unbelievable. But yeah, no, that blows my mind that that the conversation of, the solution to kids dying
Should be to arm more teachers.
because of guns is to put more guns on campus and
Right.
give them to our teachers.
So
I mean,
that perpetuates this ideology, this like environment of violence. For one, more guns in the classroom is not going to help anything. It's going to create this violent space. And not only that, imagine you're a kid, especially a first grade student, right? And you are aware that there's a gun in the classroom. Imagine how your growth as an individual is stunted by this fear of the fact that there's a gun in the classroom in general.
where am I going to keep it?
Exactly.
That's too much.
I disagree. If a shooting that happened across the country has made these kids afraid of getting shot, why would a gun inside the classroom not paralyze them?
There's like campus police, and they have a gun on them.
Right, but we're talking about
Yeah,
your
they're
teacher
trained to
in
do
the
that.
classroom. Right.
That
Not
is
trained to teach
literally
fucking
their
math.
job.
There's got to be a couple of teachers inside the school
No.
that could be trained and could be good enough to handle a gun.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Roy.
Me too, but I don't like that.
So let me just okay. So
I
that's
disagree.
always the go-to after that is there's the whole and it's like clockwork when you have a teacher who says I don't want to bring a gun, I'm not comfortable carrying a gun. Then the answer inevitably is, well, it's not you we're talking about. We're talking about teachers who are trained to use guns, who are comfortable with guns, who are like me, where they would be like, I am totally 100% comfortable with a gun on me.
No.
But then what's the answer there? Are we going to go and lean into the good guy with the gun myth now?
Oh, God damn it. So you're going to say that's a myth. So
Can you-
you're a good guy with a gun. If a guy jumped in here right now, would you shoot him?
I've stopped 0 fucking mass shootings.
But I'm asking you if you would.
And if I would, I would try as I was running my ass off. This whole thing is like we have enough data because we have a constant parade of shootings and we have more guns than people in this country.
Right.
So even if we have what 350 million guns for 300 million people. So let's say conservatively that's 1 gun per good guy, right? Yet we see these mass shootings and nothing stops them. The cops don't
Right,
stop them.
right.
The armed and trained police rarely stop them before there's massive devastation.
Wait a minute.
So
Who
you're
stopped him?
telling me
Who
a
stopped him in
fucking
Sutherland
A
Springs then?
civilian's going to stop
Nobody-
that?
A
They
civilian.
already done the
You're
shooting
lying.
and
No,
stuff.
no, no.
Bullshit,
In
Roy.
Sutherland
They already
Springs,
did the
it was a
shooting.
guy waiting at the gas station.
He had
and
already
shot him.
killed everybody by the time he got shot.
But who
Exactly.
stopped
He was
him? No,
fleeing
he
the
didn't kill
fucking
everybody.
scene.
Oh, sorry, we got to stop.
Sorry, all right.
All right, he
Yeah,
didn't
sorry.
kill everybody. He killed a lot of folks. That's true. But it was still a good guy with a gun that stopped his bad guy with a
It
gun.
didn't stop him, Roy, because he'd already pulled off the massacre and was leaving. He was leaving the scene and was shot.
And let's talk about how unique those events are. How unique those events are.
Yeah, like, because, okay, you want to, I'll give you an example. I will gift wrap you one. All right, so New Life Church in Colorado Springs, about 12 years ago, there was a shooting. The guy killed 2 girls in the parking lot, and one of the congregants managed to shoot and kill the shooter. Do you have any more stories like that?
No, but in both of the recent ones, a police officer did it in almost a minute was the longest that it took them to kill him. So that was a good guy with a gun, no?
That was a trained guy with a gun. That's a person whose job is literally to stop this stuff. And even though he was trained to do this, and it's literally his job that he clocks in for every day, we still have a pile of bodies that are fucking cooling right now. So it didn't stop shit. Because you still have, like, they carry off these executions, mass killings, and then they get shot, and you go, okay, well, good guy with a gun stopped it. It could have been 35 instead of just 30.
There's no doubt that it doesn't matter how many people die. It's still awful.
I'm just tired of, like, us having, like, why are we're trying to stop this good guy with the gun thing is, like, stopping the shootings after they're already happening.
Right.
Can we just work on preventing them?
Exactly.
Like, that's what I want to work on.
Let's go there. Let's start there. Let's go preventative.
So what does that look like? Honestly, I mean, what?
I kind of want to hear
you give up
Roy's. What does it look like to prevent this? What do you?
Oh, wait a minute.
We do?
So do you believe there's a problem? If so, how can we stop it?
I think that there's 30 million plus people with guns, and every year, if we have 4 or 5 like crazy mass shootings, that's 4 or 5 crazy folks.
4 or 5.
We're up to 255 this year, Roy.
I don't. What based on what? What does that mean? A mass?
4 people shot equals a mass shooting.
I don't.
And if you look at the,
you don't buy it? Okay, well that's
4 people's not enough for you.
Roy.
No, I just don't.
Or what
I don't buy that each one of those was a massacre of some type of way.
I didn't
We
say
hear
massacre,
about the
I said
big
mass
boys.
shooting. 255. They're considered mass shootings.
Okay, wait a minute. Okay, then let's say 245. Then that's 245 people that went crazy out of 30 million that own guns. Here is and I get it. You guys don't believe this, but there are people who believe this, and I'm happen to be one of them. That if you give away your liberty, you won't get it back again. If we give away the ability to I know you guys don't think that these guns are necessary. I get that. And you guys also don't believe that government tyranny could be something that happens. But I think that it could. And I think that they're necessary for that. Well, you were making the argument that it was ridiculous to think that we could even fight back. But if that ever happened, well, I don't believe that either. Okay. I think that you could probably at least try.
Oh, you can try all you want. And you can get buried next to fucking Weaver out there in Washington. You can try. I'm not opposed to the idea.
What would you rather fight against them with if government was really to take over?
Look, well, first of all, let's stop electing fucking tyranny into office.
Exactly.
Right. So maybe, thank you.
And so we don't have that
there. I'd be happy to start there. But when you're saying, like, okay, you're talking about giving away liberties, right? Mm-hmm. So do you think that you should have the right to own a tank?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that you should have the right to own a nuke?
No.
Okay. So what's the line between a tank and a nuke that you're willing to draw that isn't an infringement upon liberty?
Well, there's like decommissioned tanks. I should be able to buy one of those.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about decommissioned. I'm talking about weaponized.
I should be able to have
Come on,
that.
you've met me, Roy. You think I'm talking about decommissioned tank?
Well, I mean, hey, look, I don't know. You just asked me if I wanted to buy a nuke. It was getting crazy, brother.
It's gonna, man. I gotta find your line, Roy. I gotta get real weird to try to find your goddamn lines.
All he's saying,
I'm against privatized sales of nukes, and if we do sell them, there should be a background check.
Okay, all he's saying is where.
That's all he says. We should have a background check.
Chad is saying, and we're all saying, where do we draw that line? Because the line, we have to draw a line. That's what we're saying.
I know, and I promise you, I'm trying to find it too. While you guys are talking, it's not like I'm just trying to be an asshole.
Not only
but
that,
it's tough because all the stuff you're saying tugs at the heartstrings. But there's still the other part of me that's like, fuck though. If they take this away, we will never get it back. They'll never give us back the ability to buy an AK if we give up the ability.
But
to buy
not only that,
did though. Because remember, like they banned those, and then
but it was a lucky strike if it didn't happen.
It wasn't strike. It was a Republican administration,
right.
Yes,
who wanted to win points right before their fucking economy collapsed. It's not a lucky strike. It's a useful tool that they use, and they do it with our lives as the fucking cost.
And though it may not have worked, I believe that the fact that it was legislation in general speaks to something. There is lots. No, I don't believe so.
Statistically, it is.
Statistically, I don't believe so.
Google more shit.
I know a lot about it. Trust me, and I'm telling you, it didn't work that well.
My heart doesn't need Google.
Oh my God.
That's because you don't have a computer. Okay.
Right?
But
It's because your heart's going to have an attack waiting for your fucking broadband to dial up in time for you to Google some shit that happened 3 months ago.
But the biggest
Hey man,
thing,
I get the paper.
the biggest thing to note here is that the young people are screaming out they want gun control, and
Hey,
I
you
mean
know
they're
what?
being
That
most
part-
affected by it,
yeah.
right? They're being most affected. Like I want to of the top 10 mass shootings in the last 70 years, 6 of them were in the last 10 years. So 6 of them have been and are, you know what I mean? We've seen them.
Honestly,
6 of the 10
Of the top 10.
of the top 10.
Oh, okay.
So 60%.
Yeah.
Right. So we've lived through those. Millennials have lived through those. This is something that has been so desensitized to them. You know what I mean? Like another mass shooting. They want to see it. We want to see it.
But you know, I also want to say, specifically now we're talking about the groups that are most impacted. Young people, yes, but can we also be very, very real about this? It's also Latinos, people of color in general. That El Paso shooting was not some random act that some guy felt like going
Right.
trigger happy. It was very targeted. It was against brown people. It was against immigrants.
Yep.
And that cannot be denied.
And terrorism, let's call it its name.
It's
it was
terrorism.
an act of terror.
It was an act of terror. But people want to, turn their face. They want to pretend like it's something, oh, it's mental illness. Racism is, I think it's mental, but it's not mental illness,
Right.
okay? It is an issue that we need to start working on and start preventing, and it's just ridiculous. But that's what I want. I want to make sure that we call that out as it is.
Yeah.
Okay. You know what? To piggyback on that, I mean, another unpopular opinion, but I happen to think that probably more people of color ought to have guns. That the more of us that have guns, the better it is for all of us, especially for reasons like that. There are people who will attack our communities.
Well, okay. So let's think back to the Paso shooting. Right?
Yeah.
We had immigrants there, right? They're targeting immigrants, targeting Latinos in general, because when it comes to immigration, they don't really care
Right.
if you actually are a citizen or not. It's about what the color of your
Some of
skin
those
is, right?
people were visiting America.
Right.
Weren't even American citizens.
Exactly. But beyond that, let's imagine that we had immigrants with guns. Imagine that they brought them out to protect the people who are being shot at.
Yeah.
Or in general, bringing out guns and they shot someone, whatever the case. Then what story gets circulated?
Exactly.
That these dangerous immigrants coming from Mexico, coming from these places, look what they're doing. They're bringing guns into the country. They're dangerous.
These thugs. You know,
Yeah.
Right. There you go. It reaffirms this message that is being circulated around our country that is impacting our students. Our students hear these messages, and it is impacting what they believe about themselves.
Yeah.
Okay? And that is the most devastating thing for me as an educator that works with students on a daily basis. I'm trying to get them to embrace who they are, embrace their culture, and feel proud. For those of them that are Mexican, feel proud about that, right? But how can you feel proud when all the messages that you're hearing is that you're dangerous, that you're rapists, that your people are not good people, right?
Not only that. Keep going.
No. And I guess like going back to the point of like putting more guns and like, to me, that's not solving the problem. That's agitating it. That's making it worse. And agitating can be a good thing. In this case, it's making it worse for our community.
I think furthermore, if you look at it, the Second Amendment is a right that is assured and secured to white men, if you want to be honest. Imagine me, a black man, walking down the street carrying a gun. We've seen in those instances how that ends. We've seen how it ends. You're going to say you want more people of color to have guns? We have seen, and the people that have them legally, that have license to carry. We know that narrative, and we've seen how it ends.
But
If
why
black
don't we
people
should
are
have the
dying.
exact same rights that anybody else has? Why can't we have guns at the same kind of levels like they do?
I'm actually going to take a rare stance and agree with Roy a little bit.
Thank you.
Or don't get too excited.
This is crazy.
I'm only going to kind of agree. So we did see some really effective use of, black people doing an open carry when we had like the Black Panther movement. I said we, I wasn't, none of us were doing that. You know what I mean? And there is some historical efficacy to, kind of improving relations in that way and getting some equal ground. Now
Do you know how
I know,
radical
I'm the
that
whitest guy.
was, though?
I know.
The Black Panther.
But why not? Okay, look, I don't want to get into radicalism,
so
but
radical, though, is what I'm
Oh yeah,
saying.
no.
But
Well,
that's
the
not a
beginning,
bad
the
thing.
beginning that they started off with when they were like feeding the kids in the community, whatever.
Right.
We're not going to get into all that. The point is, I understand what you're saying, but also you've got Philando Castile You know what I mean? This guy
Right.
is carrying legally a gun on him.
Announced it to the officer.
To the jumped up cop who was clearly freaking out when you watch the video. And the cop shoots him, kills him. And where was the NRA on that? You know what I'm saying? So to understand from Ryan's point of view, like, I'm a straight white male. I have defenders as far as, like, if that shit happened to me, oh, you bet your ass you'd have Wayne LaPierre out there on TV with my fucking face up there going, there's a way to gun right.
Yep.
But that's not what happened with Philando Castile. They didn't say, not a fucking peep.
Hell, you
'Cause
don't
that's
even
not
need
what
a
they're
gun
about.
to get killed.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
And that's what we're saying. They keep moving the burden on gun control. Because in that incident, right, what is it? Well, he...
I think he smoked weed once in middle school
Exactly.
or something, is
They
what I
keep
heard.
moving.
Oh my God, yeah.
They
that's
keep
right.
moving the burden. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
it's like, if
Well,
we're going to
Fox
take
told
one
me.
stance, we have to take a whole stance for one.
Oh, you know what though? I've always thought, and this is just kind of a crazy thing, but well, not. I'm sure you guys thought everything else is crazy too. But on this thing in particular, I always thought if more people of color got guns, I wonder how many white folks would still be advocating so hard for the Second Amendment.
Right. Let's be clear.
I'm telling you
Let's
right
be
now,
clear.
my family would vote to ban assault rifles. I'm not saying me. I'm not saying me.
I knew it.
But
again, sorry, Chad. I'm just kidding.
no, the hillbilly stock that I come from would they'd be in the streets. We gotta get these guns
Right.
off of here.
Yeah, I always
Yeah.
thought, like, just as
Yeah.
a strategic point of view,
quick.
if people of color started getting guns, I think we could reverse the whole thing.
We
Gun
got gun
control would be.
control tomorrow.
That's what I was thinking
Are you
too.
kidding me?
Yeah.
The NRA would be marching on behalf of
Yeah. And that's what we're saying. The narrative is so different. When it's
Yeah.
a white man that goes and carries out a mass shooting, it's mental illness.
mental illness.
It's mental illness. When it's a person of color, when it's a foreigner, when it's someone that has migrated to our country, it's act of terrorism.
Right.
All right, why don't we open it up to the audience for some comments? Audience, does anybody want?
Hi, my name is Fabiola, and I'm from El Paso. I live over there for 30 years of my life, and then I moved on to 2012 to here, San Antonio. My point is that this mass shooting in El Paso, it wasn't mental illness at all. I live over there, and I know that this particular Walmart that is in Cielo Vista is just the biggest mall that everybody in Juarez will go to. Even Chihuahua, that is closest, will go to El Paso for shopping, and they will go to that mall. There's like more than 3 malls in El Paso, big ones, and Cielo Vista is the biggest Hispanic one. So this man knew where he was going. He knew, he made his research, and it just literally breaks my heart because all my family, all my friends, old co-workers live there, and I was just thinking about them when I heard about the news.
So when you first heard about the news, what was your first reaction? What was in your head? What did you think? This is what I need to do. This is who I need to contact. I mean, what did you do?
I was in shock for a few minutes because it was El Paso. It was my hometown. Mm-hmm. I never thought that would happen. And it's one of the, El Paso is the safest city. It's been ranked the safest city for a long time. And I know the people over there, and I knew it was something from over there. So I would like, what happened? I didn't have the facts. I didn't know what happened. So I would like, I text my best friend, because I knew she was close of that area, and then I would start texting my aunts and then my friends, and then just knowing that everybody was safe, I would like, okay, but what about the other family? What am I gonna do? What can I do from here? So I didn't used to vote, but I'm starting to vote. I'm starting to go to marches. I'm starting to be part of Mama Demands, and I sign petitions, and I do this and I do that, and I think I need more.
Yeah.
I need to start looking and seeing something that it can make me feel that I'm on the right path.
Right. Or that you're heard in general, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you get involved with the gun reform stuff because of your daughter, or did she get involved with it?
She get involved me because I saw
Wow,
her.
that's pretty
I
cool.
saw
See?
her.
Wow.
See?
Great job.
Yeah, I saw her being involved, and I was like, hey, a teenager is teaching me
Right.
how am I supposed to act. And I was I was
Corny.
proud, and I was and I was.
I know it's
I love
nice.
it.
It's so beautiful.
But it's also scary because we were supposed to
Right.
protect them.
Yeah.
We were the ones supposed to be making this life easier for them, and it's hard. It's hard being a Hispanic in a place that you don't know about it, with the
Right.
language that you learn, with the language that probably I'm not speaking it right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I always say that my sky is her floor, so I'm gonna be like
Yeah.
doing more and more and more.
Why didn't you vote before?
When
Like just before, you said you weren't really involved beforehand.
I started with the elections, this past election with Trump, and
Wow. And what made you get into the process?
seeing all this community working together, like being like, hey, he's talking about me as Hispanic and making me part of this group that I am not too. I'm not gonna let that man or anybody put me in a group that I'm not, that I don't belong.
Wow.
And I'm gonna make them know that we as Hispanic, we had a voice. We are part of this community. We are Americans too, but we are proud to be Hispanics. We are proud that I bilingual.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have to speak for myself. I have to speak for my daughter. I have to speak for my friends and for those that don't have a voice now.
Right.
So it hurts me because I'm a mom. And I feel those moms, I feel those sisters, because I have sisters, I have family too, so I feel them like part of me. Like I know that I'm not in their shoes. I'm glad, I'm blessed that I'm not being that. But I can do something. I can start doing a little bit, and if I'll put something into it, at the end, I really, really hope that it will lead us to a great country.
Wow.
That was nice.
I am so inspired right now.
That's great.
And I was supposed to tag them so nervous.
That was
Be able to
Powerful.
fall.
Better than any shit I
Yeah.
would have said.
Chad,
I know, for real.
Chad wants to be a parent now.
He went from saying, do you know that there are dogs? All right, I need to get.
let's not get crazy.
No, well, thank you
Thank
so
you.
Yeah,
much.
thank
much.
you. It's awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
I think we should wrap it up
Yeah.
here, though. Yeah.
So, the closing thoughts? Where are we starting? Chad?
I think we
The white
solved it.
privilege?
I say we nailed it. I think we solved the problem
Yeah.
altogether. Yeah.
I don't know about. I couldn't
we're
even
good
tell
now,
you.
right?
No, I think we're probably just as confused as Congress.
Well, and I think
Congress is
I
not
think
confused. Let's get that straight.
So my closing thoughts are this. Look, as long as we don't vote, as long as we sit on the sidelines and just continue to allow people to make decisions for us, nothing is going to change, okay? I get that it's frustrating, as we saw. I get that it's frustrating, as we saw, as we heard from our young people who, you know, we want to see change and sometimes we don't see it. But I promise you, nothing's going to change if we continue to sit by idly and not have our voices heard. So register to vote. Let people know that you're here. Don't be ignored.
Yeah. My closing thoughts, I say, as a young person, I see the young people, we are angry, we're speaking out, we are being so terribly affected by this right now. And to everyone that has an opinion that feels a certain way, there is one way to do it, and it's to vote, as she said. So the biggest thing is I want to see young people out voting. I want you to put your money where your mouth is. If you're angry, if you feel a certain way about gun control, let's do something about it. And the only way to do that is to vote, to make your voice heard. You are important. We are empowering you here. You should be empowered everywhere that you go. You're the fucking shit. The end.
Yeah, just to buttress Ryan's point, I want to encourage all of you to be informed voters. Find out, unfortunately, Congress isn't NASCAR. They don't have to wear little patches saying who paid for their campaign. But you got to look at where the funding comes from, because that's how we wind up with the system that we have right now of complete and utter inaction.
Hey, and if you're afraid, just like me, of the government taking over and you want to be able to keep your guns and your liberty, also register to vote and also get out and vote. And I know you will, because these guys don't forget somehow.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyhow, hey, listen, we've had a
Do we
day
have
with
to end that way? Fuck.
Sorry.
Did he have to be the one?
You guys can say whatever you want, but I get to speak my piece too. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us here on the Get It podcast, where we get it every day. Thank you guys so much.
Go
we'll see
Peace
you next
Plan.
time.
Go Peace Plan. Woo!